by a lowborn is not really even approved in that way, right? In the whole scheme of things with the royal families and holy families and this kind of thing, right? So this could perpetuate for quite a bit externally. Internally, you have really a lot of power unless you fall out of power. And that's what we were saying about the hereditary passing of where somebody can kind of like doom you a little bit, like your mom can doom you a little bit, and you'll have to kind of swim. That's why we have a saying around here, keep swimming. And what we're talking about is getting to the surface. Because a lot of times people are looking to even get to zero again, because where they're at is like negative 30 in the degrees. Right. Their base, lo-fi, right? So they're really low in their frequency. And, you know, and versus not saying low frequency is a bad thing. There's a lesson there. Sub infrared is the realm. You could see them if you stop using, if you weren't exposed to light for 2 weeks, you can see the other entities. They live in the sub red realm, what they call it? Infrared. Right, they're infrared. Literally, that's actually what you see them. They move around like red shadows. You see what I mean? And if the more you don't exposed to light, because your pineal gland closes when you're exposed to light, and that's why you should understand kind of like the whole role of light in a reality is actually to blind you. That's why they call it blinded by the light. Right. And so when you're also remember the sun. Remember, I said it's still more like the great mother's principle because it's like those are the machinations that are dynamos. But this is not the same sun. This is the sixth sun, right? So the sixth sun, in this case, all these suns roll through like processors in the morning. This is why that the kid be doing stuff that they're doing. And so nothing is really out of place here. So why we would want to blame other races, we would want to blame other circumstances. This is still all about that one thing that the celestials, if you may, so we don't give them terms like mothers and fathers, told Jehovah Genetrix about, which is, hey, don't create unbalance because you're gonna, we've been through this before. Look how much stuff has happened now. We're in the after effect of this. And if you don't think that that's the truth, you can definitely say that kid that ends up lighting somebody up with a rifle or whatever is a product of generally a man or a boy that does not have a mother or does not have a father or does not have a family. And so all we're really doing here, and I'm still looking for this bas relief, by the way, that's what I'm looking for. And so all we're really doing here is we're restoring the family, but the family has got beef, right? The family is always arguing. The number one question that's always asked to me is that my mother or somebody close to me in my family is not listening to this knowledge and I'm tired of dealing with them. What should I do? And I'm pretty sure that's probably a question you get a lot. So you can see it's inherent and resident inside of us to constantly being conflicting with our families all the time, right? And that lets you understand the condition of the spirituality. And because of that condition, you have now a predator, something that is preying on this vulnerability, preying on this weakness. Because see, the family structure, like, you know, the women get tired because they don't have the grandmothers there. The kids don't get educated because they don't have the whole village. So you got, you know, to raise a child, it takes a whole village, right? So because when you don't have that, shit's going to happen because you don't have that. Don't think that just because you don't have that, everything is going to be okay. Now you're going to end up going through this whole process. And so all of the bad things, quote unquote, that we're seeing happening is based on the ignorance of us actually bringing children into the world, that even it got to a point where people were selling their own children. They were bartering their children with spirits. You can have the child, 2 childs in the generation if you give me riches this life. So they were doing all types of horrid things with their fruits. Because remember, for us as trees, we only can produce fruit, and the fruit from us is our children. And so if anything is going to be eating us, it's going to be eating our fruit, or it's going to be eating our children. So the Gnostics also believe that you shouldn't keep having babies and bringing babies into the world, because what you're doing is you're bringing babies for the jackal to eat. Because if you don't raise them properly, then they get caught up in the jackal system. So they extract all the magnesium off for all the stuff that you're using magnesium for, generally from the water, not from the earth. There's way more than enough there. It has all of the cell salts, all of the, it's got a full stack of all the salts. So as you go out there and you soak, you connect. If you go back if the tide pulls all the way back, which is called low tide, and you go out in there, where you're going is now where they can actually communicate, meaning that ancestors and everything, that's where they stop. They don't get beached, meaning that no aquatic being with the right sense goes any further than where the tide pulls back completely. So right there is the line. And then that zone, and I've talked about this before, between the low tide and the high tide, that is called the gray area. This is the same thing that they're exploiting in the reality. There's always a gray area where there's like a margin zone where it's kind of like anything goes in between the shore and, where the first entry of that is, right? So yeah, hopefully that, you'll be able to take this knowledge and this wisdom and let it turn infinite wheels. Because for me, like, I can roll through all of this and for infinitely, because I have infinite wheels, because my knowledge it doesn't have any gaps in it. So there's nothing that I'm still trying to like technically figure out. And because of that, I'm able to go deeper. But every time I go deeper, I do learn something new and I do figure something out. And that's why I realized that what we had done is we basically use knowledge as like a fuel supply. And that's what I was saying. And maybe you mentioned it before. See, the technology, of course, is plagiarized from spirituality. But if spirituality is really like has to do with the stars, then technically all we were really doing before there was TV or any of this or light pollution was we were just interfacing with the stars. And you go and find out that most of it was still a lot of the you don't know really what the matriarch was doing because they buried and destroyed a lot of their knowledge, or it was never written because they're the original Kabbalah. They didn't never say the words. Everything was in tone, right? So basically it's just like you can see how society has been rolling. And then you can see how, like I said, that there is a direction that you shouldn't go, if you may. And then now what has come to you is like more knowledge and wisdom that gives you more insight on the things that you're actually seeing around you. Yeah. So I guess, I never found the glyph here. So, I can desist. But as you can see with me, it's like, it's not really about an end. It's just about getting everybody to a point of clarity. I also did want to mention, though, that we're going to be giving out some stuff, right? Because the plan is right now, because man, by lack of wisdom, my people perish. And you got to admit that still there's a lot of people that don't deal with like this kind of knowledge at all. Like even the stuff that we may find like commonplace, they're already like, I don't know about this. So this means that it's better to teach people based on what they want to know and then kind of have them start going up the ladder. And that's why I find that if long as they can get the truth, this could be potentially a game changer. Like if we can rally all the Indians, there's a lot of them. Don't let me get some of the black Chinese. You know what I mean? I'm just saying, like, if it gets to the people, the knowledge in their language, because remember that whole thing, let us go down and confuse them. I explained that in the last episode, was them confusing the language. And this is why it's important to go in the last episode, because I broke down more of Jackal's workings. But the confusion of language is what has got us all separate, because if I go up into another country and I'm trying to explain this and I can't speak their language, I'm dust. Now, also, because I'm talking about high occult matters, unless I know the right words to translate what I'm saying to in their language, now they're really lost. Like some folks are still barely hanging on right now. Imagine if I'm trying to speak this in Mandarin, I'm trying to find a word for Marduk in Mandarin or some kind of cognate. I'm not going to be able to find it. So what we've done is that we've deployed the system in order to be able to bring more people into the awareness of spiritual knowledge. And that's why I said before, if I had everybody with me, then it would actually make a huge impact. And then so what I got to do at times, though, is see, okay, how is that going to be something that everybody wants to participate in? And so because, there tends to have to be some kind of playing like, that's Lex Friedman, basically, that can put them onto it. And they're re-engineering their characters. Like they re-engineer themselves from a nerd like Bezos. Now they will choke you out on the mat. You see what I mean? And it's just like when you can get like Elon and Zuckerberg and a few others, maybe Sam Altman and a few others, Samuel Altman, Altering Men. If you get them into all one room with each other, they're pretty much controlling the entire reality and your children alike. You see what I mean? And do you think that it's going to be one man speaking one language in a guttural tone and doesn't even know the mysteries that is going to be able to release all of the souls that are consistently being they take the souls from the mother, just like there's fishing ocean out of the sea, fishing fish out of the sea, fishing, taking stuff off the trees, drilling stuff out of the ground. So that's all of the mother right there, right? Like I talked about earlier. So what do they do with that? They take and they exploit it. And we don't have who do you have? Tell me who I can call that I could say, look, I got a valuation right now, 26 million. I'll give you 10% for 5 million on this so I can scale it. I wouldn't be able to call one person that I know or that is anywhere near this to be able to do anything. You see what I mean? And so that tells you it all right there. and so I'm just that one in this. As I said before, 10, 22, 78. That's your entire, that's 10 on the major arcana, the minor arcana, and the whole deck. That's JEB, which is Jachin, Eva, Boaz, the third. I've been 3 times around the arc. You see what I mean? My mother is Rahima. Her father is Joseph Henry Lyons. The queen's father is Joseph Henry Lyons. So what's going on here? Am I to then perceive that the entire matrix is simply designed around making puns and jokes of me because my names and numbers are surrounded by all of the occult principles of the reality? Or would you find that same thing to be true with you if you really understood how to dissect and then put back together your life? And even if you did, would that empower you? Or would that hurt you? Would that harm you? Would it give you like a megalomania? And then you would start using that kind of power and energy to try to elevate yourself beyond others? Or would that encourage you to bring strength and to show strength in the face of a beast? You see what I mean? So these are the tests and the trials that are being put to men. And I'm glad that at this stage we have mothers. And, you know, obviously with your platform, which has a lot of reach also, that more beings are hearing at least what I'm saying. You don't got to agree. You don't got to disagree. But at the end of the day, you got to still stack me up against every single person that you also know or know about, even your Kanye's and this. And then you got to say, who is really, really doing the dynamics of actually bringing in more levels of awareness and awakening for our species and trying to position us in a way where we don't keep getting disrespected and having to degrade and debase ourselves in order to be able to make it. And that every time something new comes out, that we actually are the ones that created it. I know people that have brilliant ideas, but they don't have funding. I'm one of them, right? I fund my own projects and then I build them and I keep it going. You see me? I'm 16 hours a day for 15 years to pull this load, to get this going on, right? There are those that are with me, but I also believe that many are still on the fence. It's like a luxury. It's like an entertainment. But meanwhile, your kids, because that's who this is for. I seldom build for adults anymore because reality is that they're almost like kids. So if you don't build it for kids, then you're definitely not going to get the adults either. Right. And so what I've been doing is I've been really thinking about this future. And that's why I built this. Eventually, I'll probably put this on the blockchain as an origin. And that way, ordinal. And that way, no matter what happens, as long as the technology thing is still in play, or Bitcoin and the blockchain is still in play, people will always be able to access high levels of spiritual knowledge because it's going to be like the Pirate Bay. you see, they ain't got rid of the Pirate Bay yet. Why? Because it's working with a specific kind of node-based technology where it's on little pieces on everybody's computer. So there's no way to delete it unless you're going to delete everybody's computer. That's how our knowledge should be, because the world's not going to be over in 10 years, and it's not going to necessarily look like Jesus' times in 10 years either. We got a bit to go in the transformation. So we at least need the halls of Amenti, the actual annuals of humanity still available for those who want to enter in and know thesis or know more about themselves. That's all we've done here. So I invite you to join in on Sunday. It all launches because there's going to be some quests. We're going to ask people to do some key things, like just basically do some likes and stuff like that and share a little bit of information. And then for that, we're going to give you experience points. Whoever finishes the top 4 with the most experience points is going to get these gifts. What is that going to allow us to do? The things that we've placed in these actionables, which we'll unveil on Sunday, it will drive this platform to the top of not only the search engines, but also to the top of the tech space, where we now can actually start getting some traction in this field. And then now we can actually begin to really build some stuff out because we have the resources and we have what is necessary to do that with. And you're going to see the same thing. I'm going to be the same person that I am right now, still driving, still creating, and still giving opportunities, right? So that's what it is. So I hope that, everything that was presented today makes perfect sense. Maybe I could drop a link in the chat just in case those who don't see this will know where to get it at. But if you don't, you can jump into Sibyl's AI with an S. So that's SIBYLS .ai. And you could check it out. Also, there's a free trial here, which most people are taking advantage of. There's 700,000 questions in free trial. So that's been billed to me. But the reality is, if you even get a subscription, it supports everything that we're actually doing with this project. So see what it does, see if it's an add to value. You could do that for free. And then from there, you make the decision yourself about whether to catch it on the rebound.
Seven, they got jokes. They said I went to Astral Project. They said I went to eat dinner. They done said I went to do everything. I took a nap. They done said I went. Y'all are funny in the chat. Oh, man. Yeah, well, my brother comes on here a couple of times, not many times in a year. So I want to give it's Friday, and I want to give my brother a chance to do what he does. We definitely got to do a part 2, Seven. We definitely got to do a part 2.
That'd be part 3.
Yeah. We got to go on again. Got to get you on here more often. Before we get out of here, a couple of quick questions before we get out of here, brother. You talked about the dream world and you talked about sleep. In terms of dreams, Seven, we secrete this hormone called melatonin at night. Now, this melatonin is tied into our circadian rhythm. It's tied into the sleep, the wake sleep cycle, and it could do a lot of repairing to our body at night. It's very important at night when we're asleep for the melatonin and what it does to our body, our DNA, and everything. My question to you, if we're talking about the occult realm, Seven, what's more important for us, do you think? Is something more important in terms of melatonin? Us using it to repair our body while it's asleep, or us using it for magical purposes while we're awake at nighttime, the witching hour, staying awake, meditating, doing spells? So is melatonin more important when we're awake doing this magic, or is it more important for us to be asleep and it's repairing this avatar we have, Seven?
Well, I love to answer these questions with the old time, both. You know what I mean? But okay, so let's just imagine what's actually happening. So first of all, if you don't make it to bed at a certain time, then you actually don't get the melatonin going through the proper process, right? Mm. And so technically then, if you're staying up all night and you're doing that through an aesthetic, as we would call it, like, you're either building up energy or something like that, then it has to then be related technically to Kundalini, or technically to the energetic field that you're rising, right? So if you're in these meditations, what you're really doing is you're raising the energy, and this is why it's good to be grounded, and then you can amplify. And then technically, from everything that I've learned and seen and practiced myself, you don't actually have to focus so much on what you're trying to manifest, because that has the tendency to take you out of the frequency that is necessary to manifest. Oftentimes, any real manifester is going to encode what they're manifesting into a symbol, especially if it's very complicated, because it's easier to focus just directly on the symbol. And then, as I mentioned in the previous conversation, that you would then have an altar that actually just consisted of these different symbols. And if somebody saw your altar, they would have no clue of what was going on, but you do. And every time you put something on your altar, you can always visualize it in your mind. So if you're bringing success to your company, you would take your company logo and put it onto something that could resonate. At the base layer, wood, definitely not plastic. Higher layers, metal, etc. The higher the metal, the higher resonance, then the more vibration. And then you would actually be able to use that as a resonance field, like a Buddha statue or brass Buddha statue is a resonance field. And then you need to amplify it. The amplification is that's why you're breathing, because you're bringing up the coil or the kundalini, and then you're electric at that stage. So even your projections and also even touching things charges things. So generally there's a process of charging. It's the same way that logos are made by, occult companies, but you charge the object. And again, they negatively charge because they kill things. And that's why I tell people, avoid traditions where you're killing things, because you're negatively charging whatever you're doing. And that is necromancy, straight up. And that's all the jackal and all that. They practice necromancy. They're all into the dead and manipulating the dead and the ghouls and the zombie and all that kind of stuff. And it's just like, okay, but I tried to give you filet mignon, yet you want to eat maggots. That's basically what it's like, right? So when you're working with life has abundance. So because what happens is that when you're being given money, quote unquote, for death, which is the agreement and the arrangement that many people are making when they're taking the life of something and sending up, especially chickens, and sending up this little weak spirit to answer this prayer to this sky god, right? Which is only on that first layer of the sky. What ends up happening is it's like a monkey's paw. So you reap what you sow. Every time you do something that is got negativity attached to it, expect it. It's the reason why that you generally have to watch your back, or something stupid happens or wild, or something gets broke, or somebody gets hurt. And it's because you could have a wake of negative reflux current just headed your way for consistently practicing in things that are abhorred. They don't make sense. That's why they call them abhorred, because they just don't make any common sense. You would have to actually be ignorant to do it. So then, especially when you can surround yourself with life. So in this life process, you're building energy, right? You don't need anything else's energy. You got more than enough. In fact, the situation is handling all the energy on the spiritual plane. So the reality is, as you can bring your energy up more, your field becomes electric. And then your consciousness already knows how to divert that energy into manifesting the first stages, like a baby, the first stages of the seed germ, and nurture the seed germ of what it takes to birth something. But also remember, anything new that you're bringing in your birthing, you should always keep it very private. This is why this thing is always about a privacy with your manifestations and things like that until they're well developed. This is very similar to that. You don't let everybody hold your newborn baby until it's well developed. So what happens is that if you bring out your ideas, your fresh newborn ideas to others, and they can kill that idea. Sometimes you think that people are really in your corner and you're telling them about, like, something that you haven't even done yet, or something that's new. And they could be in their mind, like, if he gets that, like, sometimes you can even tell your girlfriend, like, I want this new car. And then she could be like, if he gets that, you're going to be leaving me. So in her mind, she's like, I hope he don't get that car. But she smiled, oh, I hope you get it, girl. You know what I mean? That kind of stuff is like the basics of 101. So building energy, which is through breathing, whole body breathing, will take you into another dimension. You don't even need these DMTs and all that kind of stuff. Those are just icings on top, caveats. I'm about to go in the elevator and come back. But truly, the breathing is the key. And obviously, the flexibility, right? So the body, yoga is key. Different things that make you more flexible, right? You don't have to do it all the time, but it is good to practice. Your insulation. This is, as the energy is running through you, it is your nervous system that it's actually running through. If you want to understand what the as below or physical aspect of what your energy system is your nervous system. So if your nervous system is like so if your piping is thin, that's the easiest way to put it. If your piping is thin, then you can rupture one of your energetic lines. This causes blockage. This causes all types of issues. So learning how and basically going slow with yourself, because really what you're doing is you're taking a baby kundalini, which everybody has one, and then you're raising that kundalini. That's why I say raise it, but it's more like you're raising it. And what you teach it is what it learns. And if it once it gets to a certain size, like a child, there ain't going to be no more time for learning. It is now going to act out what you taught it. So that's why the inverted, when they're training their Kundalini goes down first. It doesn't go up. So it basically gets the experience of like totally like darkness, not having light, not being able to deal with all of the subconscious and all that. And it becomes very damaged and sometimes stuck down there. And so most of those people, they move from the lower chakras, and I find them to be very quote unquote negative versus the ones who are moving up here. You know, you got to cycle the whole thing because they can get lodged in any of this. And when it get lodges in here, this is the person that is like, they just, you know, you can't tell them anything. Like they're just all high and mighty and all this kind of stuff. But all of it is just like, it's not grounded. Right. So that's how your energy system works. So insulating that system, getting that breath going on, realizing that you don't meditation is a median. It's the middle zone. It's like the tip of the wave. That's why I say there's a slight surplus there. So it's the tip of the wave, but not falling off or falling back. So you know how on a wave, you can either fall over the wave or you can miss the wave, right? You need to be right on the tip. And that's what lucid dreaming, or right on that point where you tilted the board a little bit forward. That's what lucid dreaming is. That's also what meditation is technically when you're getting to that phase, and manifestation is when you're getting to that phase. So yeah, the melanin is just a component. It works with the dreams really well. It strengthens the body. And when you miss it, like going out at the club and all of that, it degrades your field degrades over time. Like I personally, like even these shows, like these are the only nights that I can really do like the late night ride out.
Friday night. No, Saturday night. No, it's I'm so confused right now. I don't know what I'm delusional right now.
Yeah, you 30 minutes from now.
Oh man.
Well, actually, no, you're already on that side of things. That's
you're
on Saturday.
It's 1:30 in the morning, my time. It's 1:30 my time.
It's 12:30 for me, so okay.
All right, next question. Before I do, somebody asked the Cash App. The Cash App is at the bottom of the screen if you would like to donate. I know you appreciate this lengthy show. If you would like to show support, the Cash App is at the bottom of the screen. Next question, Sevan. Another question pertaining to dreams. I want to ask you, my brother, is having dreams sometimes a good thing? No, I'm sorry. Is having bad dreams sometimes a good thing? Why would Brother Rich ask, is having bad dreams a good thing? Well, because we build up karma with our thoughts, Sevan, and based on our thoughts, things are going to come to us. You know, our vibration, things will come to us based on that. With bad dreams, my question is, they say the mind doesn't know the difference between imagination and reality. Well, maybe the mind doesn't know the difference between a dream and reality. So when you have a bad dream, does that cancel out all that bad shit you done thought? You had this dream, you got in a car accident in a dream, boom, you eliminated the karma in that dream. Now you good to go in this realm. Talk to me, Sevan. You laughing.
I like that. You know, I'm not going to repeat that because I like that idea. I love to dump off any kind of negativity somewhere else beside in my prime, right? Like instead of the world. So I actually really like that, to be honest. I'll ponder it later on. It runs in the mechanics of what I be playing around with for sure. Yeah. And I can say on the other note that, man, I find that when I come out of a bad dream, man, I'm so happy to get this next opportunity. So in many ways, I mean, there's some dreams that it's just like, you know, it's straight madness. And sometimes I'd be looking at the Wi-Fi, as I said, I'd be like, man, I wonder if this Wi-Fi, you know what I mean? We turn this off. But actually, I actually find it to be more of a component of the moon. Because, you know, where I even live, if the moon is full, like it literally will light up everything. And it's kind of interesting the role that the moon plays even in nature too, because like for many animals, full moon is like the time to be out. It's like their party time, right? And so within this, I feel like that bad dreams can, in one way, be instrumental for showing you or giving you the feeling of having another opportunity to correct some things in life. I know many have woken out of dreams and been like really grateful that what they saw in the dream didn't happen. On another note, very negative dreams can, you know, kind of ride with you. You know, have you ever woke up out of one of them dreams and it's just kind of like on your back? It's just like you're carrying this vibe of the dream world because the essence of it was just so like surreal in a way. And but I also will say that that's a very, because I haven't really pondered it the way that you just mentioned it, but I believe that it's very plausible that something happens over there, it prevents it from happening here, and you went through it already. And that could potentially be a way of clearing circumstances and situations from actually happening in this reality beforehand, because then it's
Used to be Anubis. I've heard from several other people that it used to be Tahuti. Have you heard about it being Tahuti, a Tahuti building it, Anubis?
rain on their parade, but Tahuti is Thoth, and Thoth is Hermanubis. He's the god of writing in the halls of Amenti, or in that corridor. And this is why they're just trying to hide everything, because there is a library down there, and there's a halls of Amenti, and there is a portal there, because the inverted part of the pyramid, right? Because it's like this on top and then like this on the bottom. So that bottom point is 0 point. This would be technically what would be that gap, and that's what I said. The median, or the 0 point area, the gap in the spark plug, is really where you want to be. So the pyramid creates that within the geometry. It actually focuses everything down to that point. And then the Sphinx comes right there, and then the Amenti is there. So from my understanding, the Illuminati, as we know them now, are in that area. They got that, right? They've got control of the spaceport, if you may. And in there is a halls of Amenti. Now, I've heard that the lion, of course, as I showed in that, the design was this dog kills. You see what I mean? So they do this a lot. They betray each other. They double cross each other. It's like the way for them. And that's also even when in the male side of the reptilian stuff, that's how they do. They test their mettle in war. So they fight each other. And you see this one in the animal, right? That's why I say it's not, you can observe this in nature. And they will, the way they act. And that's the thing for them. It's kind of like when you watch animals and they're playing so rough and you're like, damn. But for them, it's playing.
Right.
You know what I mean? For you, it's sudden death. And you got to realize kind of like what level you're on versus, where they're kind of at in their mentality.